coming, the sun's zooming in, meltdown expected, the wheat is good there, engines stop running, but I have no fear, 'cause London is drowning. I live by the river.
Hello everybody and welcome to the By the Way Arsenal podcast. We have a win to discuss this week, which is nice. We also have a somewhat humiliating defeat to discuss, but never mind, we'll try and look on the bright side. We've also, of course, got an exciting statement from the board to discuss, which quite frankly I think could be the highlight, but we'll get to that later on. Glad to say we've got a full house in. I am Matt H. We also have Pete. Hello, Pete.
Hello there, Matt.
And we have Matt V. Hello, Matt.
Evening.
Right, here we are then. It's been a week, near enough, since the Bayern game. Let's get on with that first of all, because quite frankly we need to get it out of the way, which is sort of almost what the team seemed to do at some point during the second half in that game. So I've got to say it. We lost again to Bayern Munich. We lost again 5-1, meaning a 10-2 aggregate. And I don't know if you spotted this, but it actually broke the BT Sport TV display because it wouldn't fit on the little bit of colour that they had to have the aggregate score on, which is an added unpleasantness. I don't really know where to start with this. We'll start with someone who was there for it. So, Pete, any particular point you'd like to start with?
Yeah, I quite enjoyed it in a strange way. Admittedly, that might have had something to do with drinking quite a lot of gin and tonics before going into it. But I did vaguely enjoy it because I thought we played really quite well for the first 53 minutes until the sending off. And I'd gone along with no expectations of going through at all. And I think, therefore, whether we won or lost or drew just didn't really matter. So I kind of enjoyed it. I know people are laughing and saying it was a humiliation, but it didn't really matter, did it, is my point. If you were going... unless you were going to win 4-0, it doesn't really matter what any other result was, and no one ever expected 4-0. So, what's the problem? I found it vaguely enjoyable, and I thought we played really well up until the sending off. Can I just discuss that matter of sending off professional fouls at some point?
You can do it now if you like.
The thing that struck me is that why don't we change this ridiculous law of sending people off for a professional foul? Why not, particularly in situations inside the area, just award a goal?
Well, that's the kind of thing that I've heard sort of vaguely muted over the years, haven't you, about this? Someone being through on goal and taken down. It's a bit like it's a penalty try thing, isn't it? Like, to use a rugby union example, it's worthy of discussion. Perhaps not by us today, but certainly it's an interesting idea.
It doesn't ruin the game. It will stop people. It will have as much of an effect of stopping professional fouls as the current rules do. Because you don't gain anything by making a professional foul. You have an own goal chalked up against you, and then you don't ruin the game other than the goal being awarded that would probably have scored anyway.
So you'd keep it as 11 and 11 v 11. Yeah. So the Arsenal game that immediately leaps to my mind when you're talking about that kind of thing is the Champions League final in 2006, when obviously Lehmann, there's that sort of double. I mean, that wasn't in the box, was it? But it's just outside the box. But, obviously we had to change our plan such as it was within the first... I can't remember when he got... It was first sort of 20 minutes or something, wasn't it? It was quite early on. So in that basis, you wouldn't... I mean, maybe that was a bit too far out to give a goal, but that would certainly come into your kind of ruling, as it were, as a consideration for a goal to be given, but keep the player on.
Yeah. And then you don't ruin the game, but the team that's committed the professional foul gets the punishment it deserves.
Well, that's very interesting. I feel we've drifted slightly from the topic, but any attempt to not talk about the 5-1, I'm sort of quite...
What else is there to say about the 5-1? We played quite well until Koscielny got off, and then we were hopeless.
All right, that's a good place to move on from you and move to Matt. Matt, any particular comments about the game, or indeed any other rule changes you might like to see in place? I like the idea. I think the idea of 4 gin and tonics on every seat at an Arsenal game before we start might be a good idea. But...
I mean, the way it's going, it could be necessary. I thought we were very good in the first half, and the first however long it was in the second half, 5-10 minutes. So much so that in the first half, as ever, we look back to the first leg and thinking, even if we'd have lost, 4-1 and needed to win 3-0, I think we would have been in with a chance. In terms of, obviously, the red card was a big moment, but, Walcott could have had a penalty in the first half. Giroud had a big chance at the beginning of the second half. So those are both big moments that could have changed the game. As Pete said, maybe the less said what happened after Koscielny went off, the better, because a mixture of... it's not as though they cut us open, really. It's just some quite atrocious passing and defending. But I'll be honest, the fact we lost 10-2 doesn't mean a huge amount to me. I've seen a lot about how humiliating it is. To me, we lost.
Yeah, Pete, I wanted to ask you, particularly as you were there, two things really about the atmosphere, what it was like sort of beforehand, because there was a lot of coverage about the protests beforehand, although as I've seen them myself, I know they're generally pretty poorly attended things, really. There's a lot of them, but a lot of noise, but really not that many people involved. And then also, if there was any vague increase, for want of a better word, expectation after Walcott got the goal after only 20 minutes. I think I know the answer to that, but I'm asking anyway.
It was quite a good atmosphere for 53 minutes, and then after that, people just got bored and drifted off, to be honest. I mean, people were leaving as soon as Bayern scored. Seriously, they started to leave that early. So, and people were just bored by that point. They just went, oh, well, there's no point in hanging about. I'll go and get the train.
There's no... so you've sort of answered both questions in one there. So there was no... Because I'm just trying to get the point here that the media have made a lot about the recent protests before the game. There was one before the Lincoln game as well, I believe. But having been to games and seen these things, they're not representative in any sense. Now, that doesn't mean people are happy with everything, because obviously they're not. But the number who actually go on the protest, to me, it seems like a fairly pathetically small minority. Whereas the media, understandably, they've got, they're looking for a story, tend to big it up a bit. But it was obvious watching the bits I saw that the atmosphere in the ground was by no means poisonous or anything like that. So it was just interesting to get your perspective.
No, that didn't bleed into the stadium. I think there was a couple of hundred people out there. And there was nothing in the stadium. There was one chant I quite liked, which was an anti-Stan Kroenke chant. Stan Kroenke, get out of our club. But that was it, and that wasn't in any poisonous or unpleasant way other than towards Stan Kroenke.
Yeah, that was mentioned in the coverage the next day. I have to make an admission here. I didn't see the game because I went to my local club down the road instead. But unfortunately, they have BT Sport in the bar, and we were standing watching the game. And unfortunately, it was like a car crash. I couldn't stop looking at what was going on, even as the Bayern goals were raining in. But I had a drink with me, so that made things slightly better. But Matt, any particular other comments? Do we need to say anything else about this game, or should we just gently move on?
Yeah. No, I think I've tried to raise it from my mind. It was lost in the first leg. Even as well as we played, there was probably no hope we would come. Disappointing that it ended decision and then the collapse again.
Yeah, I think. Sorry, we lost you a little bit there, but I think we've got the gist of it. I don't think we need to. Linger on that anymore. All right. Well, look, we're out of the Champions League for this year. I'm sure we covered this after the first leg when, let's face it, we were pretty much we were in trouble then after that first leg anyway. So let's not tarry on it now. We already know that this season is not going the way we wanted it to go. So I'm sure there's going to be more conversations about the future a little bit further on. We'll leave that for a little bit longer. Having said that, I think it's worth having a brief chat, if we'd like to, about the I think it was last Tuesday, was it? No, it wasn't that long ago. Thursday, perhaps. Of course, it was after the Bayern game. A note from the chairman, Sir Chips Keswick. And this is very unusual because we don't normally hear anything from much sort of the upper echelons of Arsenal. Sometimes even Gazidis will come out and chat, but I'll read the statement out in full because it won't take very long for anyone who hasn't seen it. We are fully aware of the attention currently focused on the club and understand the debate. We respect that fans are entitled to their different individual opinions, but we will always run this great football club with its best long-term interests at heart. Arsene has a contract until the end of the season. Any decisions will be made by us mutually and communicated at the right time in the right way. Do we read anything into that, or is that some kind of holding statement? And it doesn't really mean anything. Matt, does this tell us anything about what's going to happen in the summer?
Probably not. I guess it made those who protest make them feel that they had some vague relevance, even if they in reality didn't. I don't know. It seems I've seen a few things mention it, and this statement sort of go along with it. It does seem increasingly likely, somewhat, that there is a chance that he could sign a new contract. I don't know if this. I'm not saying this was paving the way for that, but there just seems to be more. He seems to sort of be digging himself in and preparing to go again, as it is, I guess.
Yeah, that was one of the. I mean, personally, I think things need to change from sort of top to bottom. But that's interesting you say that, because I was starting to think, I was having a vague similar thinking that this is some very gentle groundwork, particularly given the progress in the cup, which we'll come on to shortly. Pete, anything worth noting about this particular statement?
Not really. I don't think it tells us anything we didn't already know. They're going to decide at some point whether Arsene Wenger takes up the new contract that's on offer. I think it was basically just a reaction. They'd realised that it was slightly problematic. No one saying anything, and there being protests outside the game. I mean, it's kind of no coincidence it came after the Bayern game with the first protest. Maybe they just hoped it would help the protesters go away, but that obviously didn't happen because they were back on Saturday.
They were.
I think that was all it was designed to do, to just say, look, we've heard what you've got to say. We're going to make our own decisions when we make it. So can you stop doing this now? That's all it was there for. I don't think it tells us anything.
No, I have some concern like Matt that it is sort of setting groundwork for something, but on the other hand, there's so little of any substance there that perhaps all it was some kind of well, we must say something, this is something, therefore let's say this, without necessarily meaning a great deal. But I thought I'd mention it because it was such an unusual thing to have happened. That in itself, to me, was the story almost rather than the content. And I think, the fact there was a need to do something was probably the answer to that. But let's move on to something a bit more exciting and interesting and victory-wise. That's a terrible sentence, but you know what I mean. A win on Saturday evening against Lincoln in the Cup to put us into the semi-finals. 5-0, although it wasn't quite as easy as that. As that suggests. We only got the first goal just before half-time, and the second half then was a bit of a cakewalk, to be honest, and a very good performance, actually. I think it's worth noting a few individuals in particular. Matt, should we start with you? Any particular points on this? I did think of you when I noticed Mesut Ozil was not starting and was on the bench.
I know. Surprised. Also surprised to see Lucas again consigned to his permanent role on the bench. Again, as you said, the first half was a bit iffy. Probably not as bad as Chris Sutton would try and have everyone make out, but not great nevertheless. My favourite moment of the match was undoubtedly Ozil barging into their player in the corner and Chris Sutton squawking in disgust, really.
Yes, there's been a few things I've seen today along those lines. It wasn't a great performance in the first half. The crowd didn't seem to get on their backs too much though, although that goal just before half time probably made a big difference there. I think it's worth reiterating how lovely some of the stuff was in the second half. Yes, they're playing a non-league team, but for what it's worth, they are the best non-league team. I know that sounds like a rather odd damning with faint praise, but they are easily top of the National League. I thought Bellerin looked very good. I didn't think Giroud looked very good at all. And the Perez thing, why he's not starting a game like this, I don't know. It just seems ridiculous. I don't know why he's going to want to stay, quite frankly. He's done nothing wrong. Although, funnily enough, I thought this was one of his weaker games, actually, when he did come on, which was rather frustrating. But, So he got a whole 25 minutes, but he didn't do much with it. Yeah, I mean, Pete, any thoughts on the team and the way they played, or anything along those lines?
Yeah, well, he fielded a stronger side than I think we might have suspected he would, but I think that was to avoid any potential criticism should things go horribly wrong. Obviously, he's still coming for criticism from us, mostly, for not playing Perez.
It may just be us, I don't know.
Not starting Perez, but on the whole, he was plainly saying, well, I want to win this game, I'm going to make damn sure I do. And then they went out in the first half and thought, well, can we really be bothered? And Giroud certainly couldn't be bothered. He was just, what am I doing here? And then I would agree, though, with Matt that the first goal wasn't hugely lucky. I mean, lots of goals come off deflections. Life goes on, doesn't it? They're still a goal. And it was a shot on target that happened to pop off a player. It doesn't make it incredibly lucky. Oh my God, that's so unfair on Lincoln. We were awful in the first half, and that goal probably perked us up a bit. But more the fact that Giroud actually started to play some football in the second half. And once we'd got 2 goals in front, then everyone thought this is going to be fun and went out there and had some fun. Particularly Aaron Ramsey and that very strange kicking the ball into the roof of the net from a yard, which I thought was a little dangerous, actually. If he'd really skied it horribly, he could have looked very silly.
It was nice to see him back in the starting lineup. Certainly, I thought,
Yeah.
or again in the starting lineup. And yes, that was I had every confidence in that split second that he was going to do the right thing with it. But the way things have been going over the last few weeks, you never know. But yeah, I don't know. I enjoyed the second half immensely. I thought it was very good. I was covering it by the minute, and it was pretty hectic. There seemed to be goals going in every few minutes. But when you sort of try and do the updates and find videos and all the rest of it, but yeah, I know it doesn't really count as a it's not compensation for being out of the Champions League, but there we are in a good position in the cup.
Yeah, we've got to play 2 games against big teams, probably both of which we'd lose if we got into either of them.
Yeah, the draw is very interesting. I was looking at this today because obviously we could have. We're doing this before the Chelsea United game, so we could draw Chelsea United, Man City, or Spurs. And it occurred to me that of those teams this season, the team we should have, would be Chelsea in terms of our results against those teams. But of course, things have changed somewhat since we played Chelsea in September or whenever it was. Do we have a preference as to a team to play? Do you want Spurs now? Do you want them in the final? Do you not want them at all? And Matt, any preference at this stage?
I think if, as it looks like it is, Kane's out for the foreseeable future, then they're probably not as daunting a prospect if they ever were. So probably not a bad time to play them. But some formula that sees us, if United get through, knock out Mourinho and then beat Spurs would be ideal from my point of view, I reckon. That would
be nice. The danger of beating Spurs in the final, of course, is we might not. I prefer them to be out before then. But obviously, Spurs and Mourinho in one way or another, that would be quite a nice double to pull off. I'd completely forgotten about the Harry Kane thing, but yeah, they are. I think they will be quite a different proposition without him, as you say. Pete, any particular route you'd like to see to the final?
Well, the one that probably isn't going to happen, I think, which would be Man U. I think out of the clubs currently still left in it, I think I'd fancy our chances against Man U more than any of the others in a semi. And I think we might as well get to the final if we can. But they're not going to beat Chelsea tonight anyway. So, Spuds, let's have them.
All right. I mean, it's worth noting that compared to our 2 recent cup victories, this is already going to be a harder journey, isn't it? Because of the teams we've played in those other the other iterations, if you like, of the cup were not of the same calibre. We were the obvious sort of standout team, I think, at this stage in those competitions. So it's going to be hard work. But if you had to put money on it, would you think we could lift the trophy? Have a yes or no, Pete?
No.
Matt?
No.
Okay, so I'll make that 3 of us. All right, that's not quite the
Okay.
happy thing. Well, we're honest if we don't think otherwise. Before we move on to the preview of the next game, Pete, you were going to mention something very quickly about the referee against Lincoln.
Yeah, only that I have no objection to him doing it if he did, but I think he must have taken pity on Lincoln at the end and not played any additional time, because I thought there were a few substitutions, so there should have at least been 1 or 2 minutes of added time. And if that is the case, I think that's the first time I've ever seen that.
And this is something you would applaud, is it?
Yeah, kind of. I mean, I don't have a problem with it because, we were 5-0 up. There wasn't any chance of any other result. I assume that if there only been 1 goal difference, he would have played that time. I didn't miss something here, did I? There were substitutions.
There were plenty of substitutions, I think, in that second half.
And you should have 30 seconds for each one. So, yeah, I've just never seen it before. So I was just interested.
All right, very good. Pete, sorry, Matt, any other random thoughts about the Lincoln game or anything else we've seen over the last week?
No, just that I think that rule on added time is probably in the same chapter of the rule book that states any fouls from non-league teams have to just be penciled down as good old-fashioned tackles.
There we go. That's a good one. Well, that's a very that's nearly satire. So I think we'll leave that there and move on. Right, we have just the one game to come in over the next couple of weeks, because we play Man City on the 2nd of April, so the only game we have between now and then is away at West Brom this Saturday lunchtime. So we'll do a pod next week just to review that one, but it'll be a pretty short and sweet one, because we'll review that and then we'll have a break for a week, which will be nice for everyone, I'm sure. West Brom away. Now, West Brom are having a pretty decent season. I haven't got the table in front of me at this moment, but I think they're in the top half and looking quite good.
They're on 40 points.
Oh, there we go. Pete's already there. So 40 points so they're already safe from relegation, which I'm sure, I don't know, maybe even they still these days. That's always what they say about the first target, is to get to 40 points. So they're comfortable and they're playing well. Although, did they lose at the weekend?
Yeah, to Everton.
Oh, to Everton. It was another team that's playing well, isn't it? So yeah, West Brom are 8th. There we are. We've got them, and they've actually lost the last 2 games. Maybe it's a good time to play them. Matt, any thoughts about this particular encounter?
Not really. Do you say it's the early kickoff on a Saturday?
Unfortunately, yes, it is. Yeah.
Well, that's not going to help with our sluggish starts. Just hopefully we can sort of vaguely turn up. I imagine it's the type of game where Wenger will probably put some trust in Giroud, so hopefully he'll show half an interest in wanting to play. But again, as ever, it's a game you'd hope we win, but considering everything that's going on and the news that there's going to be a plane flying over the ground about Wenger's contract, who knows?
I saw that story somewhere. Yes, I'm. That's not impressive. I mean, I don't know if that'll actually happen. I don't know why anyone thinks this works. Does it ever make a difference to anyone? Whether it's if you're mocking your opposition, that's one thing. But if you're moaning in the same way you've moaned,
Haven't they got anything better to spend their money on?
I know these things they can't be cheap, but they seem to do it. So yeah, the point about the early start and the sluggishness is a good one. I'm trying to look at the positives here. If we win this, then we've done our business, if you excuse the expression, in the league, and then it's up to other people to sort of stay ahead of us in our top 4 race. So yeah, I mean, then we've got 2 home games coming up, which could be, well, Man City at home is never going to be easy. West Ham at home, but then we're away to Palace, Borough, and then the Spurs game at the end of April. So, although, sorry, one of those is going to be moved, isn't it? Obviously, because of the semi-final stuff. So, anyway, sticking with West Brom, Pete, any thoughts on that one?
Yeah, well, it's the hardest of, say, those 3 league games coming up whenever they're played. So, I think it won't be easy, but let's hope that West Brom really are already on the beach, which they appear to be from their last 2 games. So, 40 points, 8th place, they're probably reasonably happy that they don't have to bother. What's our record like at the Hawthorns? I know it's not as bad against Tony Pulis as we imagine it is, but
No, it's not, is it? If you bear with me 1 second, I'll see if I can find the head-to-head against them over the last few games. Any particular thoughts about our top four sort of challenge, if you like? How important this is for that?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, jumped in there. Sorry, go on, Matt. Go first.
I think it's getting pretty close between two positions, 2 and 6. Liverpool still don't look particularly great. City look better, so I think it's just important to keep putting up pressure and hope that at some point our traditional late season run of form turns up.
Yeah, we could certainly do with that, couldn't we? Pete, sorry, to answer your other question about our form against West Brom, we've at the Hawthorns, we've lost 1 and won 1 over the last couple of seasons, as far as I can tell.
So it will be the toughest of those 3 games coming up, most likely, and particularly on the back of a quite bad run of form that we've had. So I think it is quite important that we take it seriously, make sure we get the win, and keep up that push to make sure we do finish in the top 4.
You're saying it's tougher than the Man City game then? Or were you just talking about the away ones?
Wasn't it Palace, Borough and Spuds next?
No. After the West Brom, it's Man City at home. Is the immediate one after the West Brom? So.
Well, I don't think it's harder than that.
All right, fair enough. There we go. We'll leave that there then. All right. Well, I think on that note, we'll finish this evening's entertainment. So we will be back next week, I say, for a brief pod where we'll look at the West Brom game and ahead to Man City. Then we'll have a little break till after that Man City game. But for the moment, thank you as ever, Pete, for your contribution.
Thanks, Matt. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you very much, and thanks, Matt, for yours.
Thank you.
And thank you very much for listening, and we will speak to you next week. Take care. Bye-bye.